Welcome to Courtside Moms. I am your host, Wendy Sparks. Today, I am so thankful to spend time with this wonderful lady who wears many hats, Miss Terri Carmichael Jackson, Executive Director of the WNBA, wife of Jaren Jackson Sr., Assistant Coach of the Westchester Knicks, and the mother of Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies. Terri, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Wendy. Well, you nailed it. You got it all. You got it all in. Lots of hats and basketball 24/7 in our family.
Absolutely. And that is
Yeah.
exactly what we're going to talk about. So, your family story is so inspiring to me. I am such a big fan. You are all living the basketball dream in different elements, as currently your family consists of a player, a coach, and an executive. What I love the most is that you have a wide view of the industry more than a lot, because you personally get to live the lives and both sides, the WNBA and the NBA. But
And the
today,
G League.
that's true. That's true. How dare I forget? So, so today we'll focus more on Jaren Jr. and learn about your experience of raising a pro athlete. So let's begin with, at what age did Jaren Jr. grow a desire to play basketball?
Oh my goodness. At what age? I don't know that anybody can really
Yeah.
pinpoint that, right? I can remember my husband was towards the end of his career with the Spurs and then the Magic. So Jay Jr. is probably, I don't know, 2 years old. And we had an amazing playroom, but in the house, but we also had this room that we called the jump room. Essentially, it was a guest room that we never furnished, but we had all these like play gym mats in there, and we had goals in there. And so I can remember Jay Jr. Like for the toddler size goal, just running around that room and probably, committing all kinds of, egregious things in basketball. It didn't matter because he was running around the room, like bumping up against the walls because everything was padded, and just slamming the ball into the goal and just falling out on the floor, laughing hysterically. Like he thought he was playing basketball. He thought that's what he was supposed to do.
Mhm.
And then if his father would throw up the ball or like, attempt to shoot at the goal, Jared Jr. would run and he would knock it out the way. So that's where the blocks came from, at age 2. Um, so this whole notion that he's the Block Panther now, like that's legitimate. Like that's from at least 20 years ago. So I remember him doing that and just having fun
Yeah.
with my husband doing it. No
Yeah.
structured, no rules. Just take the ball, bounce it, dribble it if you want, run halfway across the room, slam it in a goal, slap the other person's ball out of the goal. That's him just having fun with it. And you know what? That's what my husband has always said to him.
Right.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Those 2 words. Have
Yeah.
fun. No matter what the coach said, all the instructions, all the game prep, you're nervous, whatever it is, from whatever age, all the way up till now, the last thing he'll say, my husband is sending him game notes, things to think about. The last thing he always says is have fun. So that's the earliest memory of him enjoying exploring the game.
Yep.
I can also remember times when um, Jaren took him out to see if he'd be interested in joining an AAU team. And Jay Jr. stood at one end of the gym under a goal and just did cartwheels and and flips. And the other boys were down at the other end, actually practicing and running through drills. And my husband said, "Hey, you want to go down there?" And he's like, "No, I'm good." And so we weren't sure, did he like basketball? Was he
Yeah.
interested? Um, I had him on a swim team. I put him in a ski club. Like he was playing soccer at a very young age, did a
Yeah.
lot of other things. So he got to explore.
Yeah.
before he found his fit. And swimming was probably a close second because he was so tall and so long, particularly
Mm.
for his age group. So he was winning the heats like instantly because he could just basically get in the pool, do a couple strokes, and he was at the other end.
He's there.
He was at the other end. So those are my earliest memories of sports and then particularly basketball.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, think of it. He had his own basketball court at home, right? He had his jump room. So he's like, I'm good. Let me do something else because I play basketball every day. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I
Yep.
love that. But when did he now start playing competitive basketball when it actually was like, okay, now we're really playing to win, as opposed to, when you play like community ball, everybody gets a chance to play and then you go home and everybody's happy whether you win or lose. But competitive, where it's like, these games mean something. Someone's going to come look at you now. These games matter more than most because AAU is such a level where our teenage kids really, really start living their dream, if there really is one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fortunately, Wendy, because my husband had been involved and knew what that competition was like and what that pressure felt like. And that's why I tell the story about have fun. I mean, we kept
Love
it light for as long as we could. I mean, that
Yes.
team that, he was doing the cartwheels underneath the goal and just kind of watching out the corner of his eye, that ultimately became his first AAU team. Coach Kelvin Johnson, give him a shout out because he was one of the after my husband, of course, he's one of Jaren Jr.'s first coaches.
Right.
Jaren Sr. was the first, and then Coach Kelvin soon thereafter. Um, and so that's when it got competitive.
Yeah.
Like we're on these travel teams, like we're traveling all over Maryland or the DC, Maryland area because we were living out in Silver Spring at the time. And we're going to Ohio. We're going to tournaments in Akron, Ohio. We're going to tournaments up in New York, playing up in Harlem against the Wrens, going down to Vegas, going down to Disney World. And I'm like, how old are these kids? What are we doing exactly?
Yeah.
Our wedding anniversaries in July, I swear, every anniversary for like a good 18, 19 years, right, was spent in a gym.
Yep.
um, but that's when it's getting competitive. We're still trying to keep it light. We're still trying to
Yeah.
like have fun with everybody and playing games and we're cheering for everybody and we're still trying to keep it upbeat and positive because that AAU situation with some of the parents on our team and on other teams, like that could get really kind of thick and intense.
Yep.
So we kept it as light for as long as we could. And then he goes off to high school and we moved to Indiana and he's
Mhm.
playing for a private school that's quite competitive, Park Tudor. And then I go and take this job in New York and he's like, Mom, if you're leaving, maybe I'm changing schools. I like this school, Lalamere. He thought he had found Lalamere. Lalamere found him, but he thought he had found Lalamere. And he goes and he plays and they play for national championships,
Yeah.
sponsored by these major corporations, Geico at that time. And this is blowing my mind. I'm like, they're in high school. They're getting
Yeah.
off the buses, going to these tournaments and or these championships, going to these games. And there are people outside ready for their autographs. And I keep saying they're in high school. This is, and then I
Yeah.
was working for the NCAA at the time. And I said, get away. You're going to get them in trouble. No, they can't sign anything and you can't sell it. No, get away.
Yeah. You understood.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, he did go to high school. At both schools were in Indiana, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Park
Park
Tudor's in
Tudor and
Indianapolis and then Lalamere is up, at the top of the state, the northern part of the state, LaPorte.
so right, okay. So speak about those games though, because he did go to Park Tudor first and then he transferred. But for him as an athlete, like what were those games like for you? Because I
Oh
mean,
my
like you're saying,
God.
it's exciting and like at the same time, you still want to keep it fun, but the excitement's still always going to be there. So what were they like for you? Because now you're watching your baby play. You know what I mean? On the amateur
My
level.
baby, Wendy.
Exactly.
My baby. So I remember a game, and I think about this game every so often now, Jay Jr. in the pros, right? I think about
Mhm.
this one particular game. He is either an eighth grader or a freshman. I should look this part up because I should know this. He's probably a freshman. He's a freshman. He's a freshman.
Okay. Okay.
And he has the opportunity to play up, which means he can play, I think, a quarter or two, no more than 2 quarters in the varsity game, as long as he's only played 2 quarters in the JV game, something like
Right.
that. And so it's this big game. I think that we're Park Tudor. I think we're playing a school called Indiana Tech. I think I'm not sure. And it's a snowstorm. I mean, like it's just everything. Like everybody has poured. It doesn't matter. It's snowing. Everybody
Yep.
has poured out in Indiana for this game because that's what they do. They go to church and they go to basketball games, right? If there's any conflict, basketball wins out. And so everybody's showing up, and I haven't bought a ticket. Apparently, you have to buy a ticket for this game, and now I'm thinking there's this long line, and I'm like, oh my god, it's sold out. Am I going to get in? So somehow I managed to get in. Um, and so Jay Jr. gets to play in the varsity game, and it's towards the end of the game, and somebody's in foul trouble who was playing ahead of him. A
Yep.
more senior player, and all of a sudden, that guy gets in foul trouble or he fouls out, and the coach looks down the bench and he's motioning for Jaren Jr. to come on, and I'm like, oh my god, did I see that? And he's like, but Jaren Jr. didn't see it, so the coach is like now like yelling at him, like, come on up, to the beginning of the bench, head of the bench, and he sits him down and he talks him through, and I can see my child's legs just shaking, and I'm like so nervous. I'm thinking he's about to get in this game, and we're playing
Oh.
against Trey Lyles. This is a team that had Trey Lyles on the team, who was the
Right.
Mr. Indiana basketball candidate at the time. We had Trayvon Blewett, who was our Mr. Basketball candidate for Indiana. They had Trey Lyles, and I'm thinking, oh my god, my kid's about to get in and play against Trey Lyles, he does very well. I think he had a couple block shots then too.
Okay.
And so then fast forward, and when I see them playing professional basketball, I think to myself, I wish I could whisper in the ears of the commentators and say, what two guys played against each other in high school who are out there on the court? Like, give them a little fun fact or some
Yeah.
trivia.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just so cool to see, that kind of progression. But that was one of those moments. It's a big time moment. It's a big stage. It's Indiana where basketball rules.
Yes.
And he gets that kind of opportunity in again in a big game on a big stage. So I'm always I'm certain that I saw his little legs shaking. Um, but Jay Jr. would tell you that he doesn't really get nervous, that he
Yeah.
can't wait to get out there. I think there's a little bit of nervous right before the tip,
Of course.
but then it just kind of all goes away, and he can't wait to just be out there. And I'm just a mess the whole time.
Of course, of course, because for us, we're like, "Oh my god, he's gonna go on the court. Oh my god, and he's gonna be
Yeah,
fantastic," and we just
yeah.
can't wait, and we're running around the gym, and they're looking at us like, "Ma, can you sit? Can you just
And I'm
pull"
certain, I'm certain Wendy, you talk to all these moms. I'm certain we
Mhm.
all have that same reaction, right? Like we still
Absolutely.
can't believe our babies
Mhm.
are doing this, that they're out
Yes.
there and they're so comfortable
Yes.
doing it.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Absolutely. It
What a
is a
blessing.
blessing, and I love it, like you're saying, as a mom, and we watch our sons, and it's funny you said just now, the fun fact where you were saying you wish you can just, you know what I mean, whisper in their ear. And it's fun for me too, because as I do my research on the players and I learn so much about players, and then I speak to the moms, and here I discovered that Brian Bowen
Right.
played with Jaren Jr. So I'm like, huh. And it just reminded me of the interview that I was talking to his mom about the school, about La Lumiere. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay, I remember now. I remember all these games. So I just think it's amazing that we, you know what I mean? Like you're saying, we as moms, we look at these kids, you have the opportunity to see a lot of these kids grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I say all the time, just generally, the more you talk to somebody, the more you recognize the connections that you have with that person, right? The more you
Yeah.
recognize what you have in common with them. It's even more so in our ecosystem of basketball, with women's basketball, with men's basketball. The more you talk to folks, like our circles have passed. We played each
Yes.
other at those AAU tournaments coming up. They played each other in high school, likely. They played each other in college. We saw each other at the McDonald's All American. Like, we've had so many of these moments in common, and we've known each other or seen each other so many times before we all get to this level. And
Yeah.
it's really exciting, and it's really special for me to watch these games. And I don't care who wins or loses. Obviously, I want the Grizzlies to win,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
but it's just really awesome when I can text a mom and say, "I see your baby out there.
Yes.
He's doing his thing, and I'm cheering for him. I'm not cheering for this team, but I'm cheering for him." But that's nice. That's just really nice. It's a great connection. It's a
It's
special
it
relationship that we all have.
Absolutely, and it's funny you say that because I like to text the moms when I see their babies on the court. If I'm at a Raptors game live, I'm taking
Yes.
pictures. I'm taking, "This is your baby. Oh my god, I'm seeing him in person." So today, I was looking through the schedule and I'm like, "We don't play the Grizzlies anymore." I was like, "How am I gonna text Terry to tell her that I see her child?" So we
Yeah.
don't play
Yeah.
you again for the rest of the season. I was so disappointed. Not so I'll just text her about other things, but it was just funny because I like,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? Just for moms, we have that sisterhood and we can talk to each other about our kids. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I love, love, love to watch games. Now I have another reason yet to watch Grizzlies.
Absolutely.
Before, you know what I mean? Before I watch basketball regardless, but I would predominantly watch the team, like my son's team. Before he
Right.
was with Orlando Magic, now he's with Toronto Raptors. So
Right.
those would be the games I watch. But now that I'm getting to learn and meet so many other moms, now if I'm just scrolling through the TV and I see like a Grizzlies game come on, I'm gonna watch it because
Well,
now I
thank
actually
you.
have that connection. You know what I
Thank
mean?
you.
So it's important. Yeah.
Same back at you. Same back at you. And
Yeah.
if ever anything happens in a game, maybe a player gets hit, goes down for a little bit,
Yep.
and I know the mom, I have the mom on in, the mom's
Yep.
contact information. I'll just say, okay, I don't know if you're seeing this in real time, but he's okay.
Yep.
He
Yep.
got up, so
Yep.
we all appreciate those kinds of
We
texts.
do. We do. So now let's talk about recruitment. So recruitment, yeah. You are very well versed in this. I guess come from NCAA all the way to WNBPA, right? So
Yeah.
I love asking you these questions. So recruitment is always exciting for our kids. However, in my opinion, their emotions and excitement can sometimes outweigh the perceived quality of the academics as well as the basketball program. So, as a consensus 5-star recruit, what was important for your family when schools approached, and what was your expectations during your visits?
You know what? I think we had probably I know we had a really unique and special recruiting experience because of how our family was positioned.
Right.
My husband having already gone through this and
Yes.
knows everybody. I call him the Kevin Bacon of basketball, right? Like, he is 6 degrees, probably 4 or 5 degrees separated from anybody in the sport at any level.
Mhm.
And then I was working at the NCAA and everybody knew it. And so Jaren Jr. used to say, "Mom, you walk into a gym and everybody scatters, like nothing, anybody who's trying anything shady or, even thinking about it will go in the opposite direction." So we knew we were going to have a good experience in that sense because I was going to stay on the right side of the rules. And if I
Right.
had to teach anybody what the rules were and the regs were, I would not going to
Yep.
hesitate to do that. That's not my style. Everybody knows it. Um, so the experience was really good. And so when schools were reaching out, I think for the most part, we believe that they were truly reaching out because they had an interest. They saw, a future and opportunity for Jay Jr. But they were reaching out. The schools that were reaching out knew that my husband and I had gone to Georgetown, and we had graduated together. We were freshmen together. We
Hmm.
graduated together in 4 years. And academics was very big in our lives. My husband's also a former valedictorian, a high school valedictorian. So education was big for us. And so, any school that was reaching out knew that they had to have that conversation at the same time, talk
Right.
about what the academic offerings were, what the expectations were, and meet us there. Because if they weren't going to have that conversation, I think they knew not to call, or they knew that that call was probably going to be a one-off kind
Yeah.
of thing for them. So we had it really good. We had it really good. And we were really organized too about it. I don't often tell this story. I think my husband and I have started to tell the story, but we had whiteboards that he put up, and we couldn't put them up in just any place in the house. So we had to put them up in our bedroom. So if you can imagine this one wall in the master bedroom with these two giant whiteboards that mimicked a spreadsheet, because we had started off like the spreadsheet, but then information was changing so quickly. We needed something that we could erase
Yep.
and kind of move things around. So we populated our whiteboards with the schools, everything we knew about the coach, everything we knew about the program, what my husband would, he would do this analysis. He was watching game tape on every school. Not these coaches don't know this. Now they know it. Now they'll know. And he was watching film on every school to understand what the system was, what the philosophy was, where the potential openings could be in a couple of years, because this was still kind of early, in terms of recruiting out of high school. Um, and so he was just constantly updating that, constantly keeping notes. And, he'd call Jay Jr. in and say, okay, look at the board, what do you think? And okay, like no decisions made, just take a look at it every now and then, add something if you want. And he just kept it very updated, very, very organized. So um, that was our experience. There was a couple other things that we did too. One day I think we just need to sit down and write a book on how we
Yes.
manage recruiting and how we manage the coaches in a way that kept everything respectable, and
Hmm.
I think folks felt that the communication was going in both ways, but it wasn't. We weren't overwhelmed by it. We weren't
Yeah.
overwhelmed by it, and we weren't going to let Jay Jr. get overwhelmed by it. Coaches probably have figured out at some point that he had two cell phones, because I could not give out that
Yeah.
Jay Jr.'s cell phone number, because these coaches were going to be crazy with it. I already knew. So he had two cell phones. So that's another way how we managed it. Um, but we were just honest and upfront with programs the whole way through. And we just said, look, we're exploring, no decisions. Just keep talking. We'll keep talking. One day we'll come visit or not, and that's the way we handled it. So it was a good experience.
Thank
But
you for
we
sharing all that.
had to manage it like a job.
Right. Absolutely. As
Yeah.
you know what, it sort of is when you think about it, because you're
Yeah.
preparing your child for his future, right? So thank you for sharing all that information, because I love to learn and I love to like pay it forward. And there's other parents that are listening who are probably going through the same process
Yeah.
that we went through. And some of them can just have zero idea because they're not as well versed, because they're just not, they just don't know. I had no idea a lot of the things that came with recruitment. Every single school that came to me was new. I sat in Canada, so I had no idea where any of these schools were. You know the states and you know the cities, but I never knew any of the schools. I had no interest in these schools until my
Right.
son
Right.
was in that position. So I was like, okay, and internet wasn't that big then. So what do? I'm calling people, I'm trying to figure this out. And I had, you know what I mean? I had this binder that I used to write notes in, and the binder was so thick
Yep.
because I was learning about the school and about the staff. But there's a lot of things that you just mentioned that I never thought to really look at until after the fact, right? Once he's in school, I'm like, oh, I should have asked him this. I should have asked him that. Oh my goodness, too late. He's already there. I mean, it was a positive experience, but there were other questions that I could have asked, and
Right.
maybe he could have been in a different position. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
thank you for sharing all those things.
No,
And
absolutely. And anybody who's listening, who's going through this with their high schooler, please reach out. I'm always available for the conversation. Reach out to Wendy, and she'll connect us.
Absolutely. So, after choosing Michigan State over Notre Dame, Butler, Purdue, and a few others, share with us your excitement of his college days.
Well, like I said, my husband and I went to Georgetown, right? So we told Jay Jr., look, we got to choose our school, you choose your school. And there was not going to be any pressure. He articulated what he wanted in a program and what he expected out of a coach, and thought Tom Izzo would be the person who would provide that kind of experience for him. But he also, during his visits, talked with some of the academic deans, and so got to know what his you know program or course of study was going to be like. So here we are, having invested all of this work and research, right? And we were, probably that first week, dropping off at college for freshmen. We're my husband and I, we're in the bookstore, we're buying all green gear because all we have is blue. We got Georgetown blue gear. So we're going in buying all the Sparty, all the green, all the white, and that we could buy, and just so we could be ready for a couple years. um Jay Jr. is it he's paired up with great teammates, and as a freshman gets to stay in one of the newer dorms, and he's got juniors and seniors, or rising seniors, as his roommates. And I'm thinking, okay, that's great. One of his roommates, Tum Tum Navran, I think that's Tum Tum's last name. He used to run the Bible study. And I was like, okay, I think he's going to be in good hands. I know there's going to be some partying. Like I'm not naive to this, but I think, there's at least a little opportunity for some balance here in what his off the court, or out of the classroom experience is going to be like. He had to figure out how to, learn how to get from one side of the campus to the other side
Mhm.
of the campus on time, and also be able to ask for help, right? So if there was opportunity for him to learn more, or get some more studying in, being able to go to some of those academic resources, and you know what, it all paid off. It was a one and done experience. That is not what we thought it was going to be by any means. Um, and particularly, I mean, the first year was a great year. He was on dean's list. He had been choosing his
Yes.
roommates for sophomore year. um and we were all thinking that. But by the time January, February was rolling around, my husband and I are looking at each other, watching this young man play, and just truly blossom before our eyes. And we start saying, do we have to have another conversation? Do we have to start thinking differently? I
Yeah.
think the one point in which we're planners, and we had not planned for that. And I know people don't believe that, because Jay Jr. just had an exceptional year, but we did not plan for that. We weren't thinking
Oh,
about that. We were so looking forward to several years, for Jay Jr. as a Michigan State Spartan, um, major part of Tom Izzo's program. So it was interesting that suddenly he and I, Georgetown grads, were changing gears.
yeah.
Um, but there was just a lot of support, from the program, from the school. And Jay Jr. promised to stay in school, and keep classes going. And so we allowed ourselves to have that conversation and to think differently. And so far, so good.
Absolutely. So, like you said, after one season, he made the decision to declare. So, tell us, how does a player who is considered one of the draft's top prospects prepare for draft night?
Huh. How does he prepare for draft night? Well, I don't know how he prepared. I remember my husband and I had an event that night. I think we were out with the uh the basketball coaches had an event. So we went to some dinner across the street. We came back, and Jay Jr. said, "Hey guys, I want to talk with you." And he had been talking with his agent, and he wanted to share with us, kind of the thinking, and how he thought that draft night was going to go, and wanted to know where everybody was going to be, and was grandmama, my mother, was grandmama going to be sitting
Mm.
at the table with us, um and I think he knew Coach Izzo was coming in town. What he didn't know was that I had invited some of his middle school buddies from Maryland and middle school
Nice.
buddies from Indiana. I invited them to New York. And so they surprised him the next day at the luncheon before the draft, and all of that. So um, we prayed together that night, and then he said, "All right, I'm going to bed." So I think he probably stayed up, but after that conversation about what he and his agent been talking about, where was grandmama going to be, who else was sitting at the table, and our prayer, and what I said to him as he was leaving the room was, "Jay Jr., remember, whoever calls your name, um, whoever selects you, remember this, that God does not make mistakes." I said, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" And he said, "I got you, Mom." And that was
Wow.
it.
And you're absolutely right. So, as parents, we are always so proud of our kids and what they accomplish. The percentage of basketball players that make it to NCAA is very small, and then the NBA is even smaller. So now take us to draft night or actually say draft day, from the moment you woke up on that day to the time your son was picked fourth overall to the Memphis Grizzlies.
You know what? That day was probably a lot like the day we got married, because it starts so early. There's so much prep that you're doing. You've got maybe a video crew or photographer with you capturing some moments, which is awesome because it will soon be a blur. And you get to look back on those memories and say, "Oh yeah, I forgot that happened. Oh, that person was there. I didn't realize it." It's a lot like a
Yeah.
wedding, right? Um, you're overwhelmed with emotion. You are so filled with um pride and
Mhm.
excitement and nervousness, and joy. And I probably prayed every hour, just even if I wherever I was in an elevator, just closed my eyes and just said some words of
Mm.
appreciation for the day. Um, I the young people that I had mentioned, his
Yep.
friends from middle school, ran around with me and did a few errands in New York. I needed to go pick up this and that, and we were having a big party afterwards, and nobody knew what I had planned for that. And so, like, keeping everything a secret and making sure everybody, all my points of contact were connected with each other. Um, and then we're getting off the bus, and we're walking into Barclays, and we're doing the walkthrough of, you're going to be on this stage and you're going to come down these steps. And at that point, I'm looking down at my, very sparkly high sandals, saying, "Why did you do this? Did you really think this through about these heels?" Um, but then sitting at the table, as I had described to him, who would be there, and just watching how cool and collected he was. And my husband was just like bursting with pride, because my husband was a journeyman, hadn't been drafted, so
That's
hadn't
right.
really been on this stage before, but got to
Yeah.
do it with his namesake son,
Yeah.
right? So and
Yes.
then we had like all these folks, in the stands at the arena, and it was just an amazing, amazing moment. You get tired and worn out, at some point, and then we're in the car going to the party. And what the guys didn't know was that I had hired a band to do the second line. So my husband's from New Orleans, so we needed to come in doing, the second line dance
Yeah.
with this band just blaring, New Orleans Jazz, um, and it was a great surprise. It was a great surprise. And by then, it felt like my batteries had fallen out because I was just done. I
Yeah.
was just done. I had no more energy left.
But I can only imagine that excitement. You know what I mean? That adrenaline kicks in and you're just like, you're on the go.
Yeah.
And then when it's all over, you're just laying there and you're like, oh my God, I just can't believe the night I just had. I can't believe what actually has happened. And my baby's in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like,
My baby's in the no, so he gets called, and it's like the Memphis Grizzlies select, right? And like this rush, and we get up and we're hugging. And at some point, Junior walks off to collect the hat and shake Adam Silver's hand as commissioner of the NBA. And I look at Senior and I said, he's 18. He can't go without us. And my husband's like, you're right. We're going to Memphis. We're going. Don't worry. And I was like, phew, because we hadn't talked about that. Like we didn't
so true.
know, right? And
Yeah.
so now we knew it's Memphis, and I'm like, oh my God, we've got to pack up and we've got to move to Memphis.
I love that because a lot of parents, like you said, you don't think of that. You never realize, like, wait, he's moving. Oh, wait, we're all moving. We all have to go to Memphis or wherever your children end up. You're like, wait, he's still a baby. He can't do this on his own.
Yeah, I mean, and
He,
Jay Junior's always been young in the grade, so seriously, like he didn't turn 19 until the season was about to start.
yeah, yeah, that is
And even 19
amazing.
is, even
Yeah,
20. So,
yeah,
but for everybody, he had his own place. I got to make sure that I let everybody know that
yeah,
he always had his own apartment, and we had our place, always living separately. We didn't, so
yeah,
um, we let him be a grown up ish.
yeah. Well, that goes to my next question. Once our kids are at the pro level, there's so much involved in preparing them for their lives as working individuals. So, what was the process like for you and your husband to get Jaren Jr. molded into the NBA world? And what steps did you take as mom to make it possible for him to be able to navigate it all?
Mm. You know, though he was young when my husband was playing and retiring, we've always talked about this life, and we've got lots of friends who have been part of professional basketball as
Right.
coaches or as players or both. So I think he's known a lot. He understood what was expected. He understood the kind of um, decision making, trustworthy folks that we would put, like mom and dad, grandmama, junior. We are the inner core,
Yeah.
right? We are that sacred core. We're that's who we can rely on, trust, without question. There would be additional people who would be part of the inner circle, not the core,
Yep.
but a part of that inner circle who would be closer to us. And that's of course the representation team out of CAA that again Jay Jr. selected. We handled that almost like we handled recruiting, for him to be able to identify who could represent him. And so um, just needing him to fall back on the way he was raised.
Yeah.
That mom and dad, my mom, it would have been Senior's parents were they still living, were part of that inner group, that inner core that he could always trust and go to for guidance and decision making. Not that we would make the decision, but we'd give him the
Right.
information so that he could do it. And
Yeah.
then when it got to decisions that were perhaps outside the expertise of that inner core, being able to identify those folks that we could rely on and that we could trust to give us even more information so that the inner core can then synthesize it and position Jay Jr. well. So we've always done that. I think he was always used to that. It was the
Yeah.
expectation with us coming down that we would still be available to him in that way, and identify additional folks who could play that role as experts in their field. So that's what we did. Not too much
Absolutely.
different from the way he was raised.
Right.
And what was the other part of your question, Wendy? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
That was it?
That was it. I was asking how did you mold him into these steps and how did you help him navigate it all? So yeah, you answered.
Yeah.
Um and it's true and there's so many different elements. It's funny because our kids, they leave us, they go to college, you know what I mean? They're in their dorms and then next thing you know, they're in their own place. And in talking to a lot of mothers, we would talk about our kids don't even realize that there's bills to be paid when you're living in your own apartment, there's rent to be paid, there's lights to be paid, you know what I mean? And we talk to our kids and we're like, "Okay, now you have to do this on your own." And they look at us like, "Do what?" And I'm looking at, "Well, how do you think the lights are on?" He's like, "I don't know. I just go to the switch and I flick it on." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but how do you think it gets paid for?" They
Oh,
stare at us.
oh, this is even better. This is even better. When he bought the house, when he bought his house, and there were a couple lights that were out,
Mhm.
and he said, "Mom, the lights are out." And I said, "Yeah." And he just looked at me and I said, "You got to change the bulbs." And he said, "Who's got to do that? I got to do that?" And I said, "Yeah, how do you think that gets done?" He's like, "Isn't there a service for that? Like a concierge?" I said, "Oh my God, a
Yep.
concierge for light bulbs? No,
Mm.
there
Yep.
isn't. You have
Mhm.
to do it."
Yep.
So yeah, truly a light bulb moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a few, and I laugh all the time. I'm like, "Oh, I failed as a mother." And I just laugh at it because I'm like, "How do you think that that happens?" And it's true when you think about it, we never had that opportunity, or we never think of it as parents, you know what I mean? Where we're raising our kids, "Okay, now there's gonna be a light bulb blown out at one point in your life. So, what you're gonna have to do is" we don't think of these things until our kids are actually mortified, like, "Oh my god, I'm in the dark. What do I do?" You're like, "Just
Yeah.
go to the store."
It's kind of funny, but
Mhm.
there were things that he wanted, like buying the house and
Yes.
buying a car and things like that. And we just use those as the opportunities to have those kinds of conversations,
Right.
right? So
Yes.
um everybody has it, folks have it at
Sure.
different times. And I don't know, like I said, I'm just so glad that we're here in Memphis
Yes.
to watch him continue to grow,
Of course.
to continue to flourish, and um, to make us proud. And hope that he is proud of himself because he
Oh,
certainly makes us proud.
of course. And there's so many teaching moments that you're going to continue to have with him as he goes
Absolutely.
along his way. Just like me, I still have teaching moments that I go through with my parents every day, right? So it just never ends. It's just a beautiful circle of life, right? So you were at that point very familiar of watching your husband play in the NBA through his career. But what was it like to see your son suit up and debut in the same league years later?
Yeah. I don't even. I there's no words for that.
Mhm.
Because I think I still experience it like the first day,
Yeah.
and like that first night, that first game, the first time he's called in the starting lineup, uh, disbelief, disbelief that this is where we are. And not because he hasn't worked hard and earned it. It's just, in the NBA, there are 450 jobs. In the W, there are even fewer. But
Yep.
in the NBA, there are 450 jobs. And so you've got to be at the top of your game
Yeah.
always. And to see that he worked so hard for it, to know what it takes, having seen my husband, as I said,
Yep.
undrafted journeyman, what was required of him, and to know that, how many years later it's even more intense.
Yeah.
um the pressure is probably even greater. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. And I want to always be sure to have space and room for the conversations that I believe are necessary to keep him grounded and to keep him understanding that this is a journey.
Yeah.
And one game, 1 week of games, one season doesn't make or break you. It's the compilation of a whole bunch of moments. It's the whole body of work. Um, yeah. That
Yeah.
those are the kinds of things that go through my head, that go through our heads as moms
Yeah.
constantly. I know I'm not alone in this.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
My son right now, he just came off of an injury. Well, two this year. He had his an injured knee, which was thought to have been a bone bruise, which later on became something a little bit more serious. And then a broken nose he just suffered and is still healing from now.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? As moms, we just want to remind them that understand this is your career and things are going to get better and you still have time. And because sometimes for the players, it's just instantaneous. They're like, oh my God, I broke something or something is not working and my career is done. I'm like, it's not necessarily so. This
Right.
just take your time and heal. And
Right.
you're great at what you do. And like you said, there's few jobs, what 450 in the NBA was a 144 in the WNBA. So
Right.
it's like you stood out amongst all the other NCAA players. You were one of those that made a difference in your talent. So you're okay and you're going to be okay. And no matter how old they are, these are conversations that I feel like us as moms, we just have to continuously remind them. And our kids, they understand the process.
Right.
But I'm sure, you know what I mean, in the back of their minds, there's that fear or that thought process at least. Maybe not, maybe Jaren is like, okay, I'm injured, but I'm great. You know what I mean? Where other players are like, I'm injured and oh my God. So I think for us, you know what I mean, that support is just never, never ending for us.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think no matter where you are in your career as a player, because I see this in the W too,
Mhm.
it is a humbling moment. It's
Yeah,
a moment in which you need to pause and just reflect and just recognize, all right, my body needs to heal, and I'm going to do everything I can, to wrap, some good,
that's right.
healthy living around my body and around my mind, and just take it one step at a time, one day at a time.
Oh, for sure. So, with your husband being a previous player and a coach, do you feel that others put pressure on Jaren Jr. to be like this great player every single time he gets on the court?
Um, probably, but as long as it doesn't come from my husband, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just life, right? There
Yep.
are going to be those that have expectations of us or what have you. But like I said, my husband was his first teacher, his first coach in
That's right.
basketball, and has never, ever put pressure on Jay Jr. Never,
Yeah.
never. I
Like
mean,
you
so
said,
much so that I was like, well, maybe you should tell him this and that. And he's like, nope, he's fine. He's good.
you know what? He understands the process. He's been through it. So he's like,
Yeah.
listen, he is going to be just fine. And for us, sometimes we don't see that. We're like, well, hold on, but wait. And it's like, no, no, just hold on.
Yep.
And yet,
Yep.
look at him now. He was fourth, chosen fourth. So Jared knew where he fit. He knew what he was doing. Like you said, God doesn't make mistakes. So
That's
all
right.
this happens for a reason. So sometimes we just have to let it go and just let it be because it's going to turn out the way it should.
Yep. Yep. And look at where we are. I mean,
Yeah.
he's playing amazing, having an incredible season, and
Yes.
the Grizzlies are, I mean, they're a playoff team.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is it like for you to watch highlights and see your son as one of the top players on the court?
What do you mean? What is it like for me to watch highlights over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Because that's what I do.
Yeah.
True story. That's what I do. Let me just go ahead and admit it. Um, I can watch a game probably 2 or 3 times. I'll watch,
Mhm.
if they've been on the road and the game is on and I've recorded the game, or if it just comes back, if they replay it, I will probably be up watching it again because I hardly sleep anyway. So yeah. What's it like? It's just joy. Just joy.
Yeah.
I always look to see what his expressions were, and you know, and whether he's on the court or not, Jay Jr. just loves the game and he loves his teammates,
Mhm.
and I love to see him, doing well, performing well himself, and I love to see him cheering on his teammates. So all
I
good.
was watching a couple of interviews today with him and his teammates, and I just love it because I see the joy. I see his love for, like you said, for his teammates. I see how they gel, and all that makes a difference when you're on the court together.
Yes, it does.
You know what I mean? So to me, I'm like, good for them. Like, good for the Grizzlies. They have this camaraderie together as, you know what I mean, as teammates, because that makes a difference. You know what I mean? When you're teammates, you got to play together. You know what I mean? You want that guard. I got to get that ball passed to me if I want to play. I don't know. It's all I'm saying is that when they gel better together, then they play together, then everything is happier together, and it just makes their NBA experience more pleasant. And I just love to see that. So when I was watching him today, I was like, oh, just amazing how he was smiling, he was laughing, he's joking around. And I'm thinking, what a pleasantry that he has within him. And that's the aura that I got from him. And to me, that was inspiring to me, looking at your son and just how he is as a professional basketball player.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's got a confidence in him too. Sometimes I
Mhm.
watch the interviews over and over again because I'm I continue to be amazed at the poise that
Mm.
he shows, and
Yeah.
and all of our young men. I'm not just talking about Jay Jr., but I see it across the Grizzlies. I see it on other teams. I'm very very happy to see these young men, how they carry themselves, how they talk about themselves, their game, their performance, whether they had a good night or a bad night, whatever bad night means, and just seeing how it's all coming together for them.
Yeah.
I'm really really happy for them. This is an intense industry. The
Mhm.
spotlight is quite big and sometimes hot,
Yeah.
and I'm pulling for all of them. I really am. I'm pulling for the Grizzlies and my kid, first,
Yeah.
but I'm just happy to see young men, our men, just doing well.
Oh,
I
for
am.
sure. For sure. So Jaren Jr. is very well spoken and he has a deep knowledge of the game. So when you watch his interviews as mom, what goes through your mind as you're sitting there listening to your son take on the questions from the sports journalist, the analyst, and the show host, or whoever's asking him these questions? Like, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, I think about, particularly if it's a question that I think is poorly worded, or one that was like, God, didn't they just ask that already? But just again to hear how he handles it, and to see sometimes him having fun, with the reporters, and I'm thinking, You all don't even know what my son is thinking right now." But um, I'm just it's just a good feeling, Wendy,
Yeah.
again, just to see how he carries himself, how he handles it, that he's having fun with the media. Um, because I hear from them too, right? Like, God, I had a good interview with your son. Like, I learned
Yeah.
something. They learned something about the game. They learned something about his preparation, or maybe a teammate's preparation,
Yep.
um, or just how coach is talking about the game. But to hear it from a player, to get that player perspective, because he does share that. He's not, overly prepared or scripted or giving out the canned responses. I mean, he is looking to peel back the curtain a little bit and give folks, um, some insight into who the Memphis Grizzlies are all about.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. I think he's just a natural spokesperson for this team, a natural leader. So when I watch him, again, nothing but pride and joy. And I used to say, well, next time say this. But now I'm like, you know what? He is truly his own person and his own man. And I love the way he's handling it.
Yeah.
I love how he's doing it. So, um, yeah, Yeah, it's a good fit for this team. It's a good fit for this team, and I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens next.
Yes. So you are experiencing the true ins and outs of basketball, so you know too well what players go through daily, good and
Mhm.
bad. Can you speak on the importance of supporting our kids to help them deal with the stress that they go through, whether it be physical, mental, or anything else?
Yeah. Um, I recognize that not every parent could do what we did, right? And
Mhm.
move to Memphis. And so the opportunities that you can get your child, get your young man, your young woman, if she's playing in the W, on the phone and have some conversation with them. You may not always have that FaceTime, but the opportunities that you can have, because it's more, the conversation is kind of a lost art, right? Like we do so much via
Yeah.
email and so much too much via text. I think
Mm.
things get lost in the translation, and it's that conversation, it's that voice that your young player needs to hear, your voice, particularly as parent, as mom. So don't lose sight of that, the value in that. It may only be for a few minutes, but I truly believe that you can make an impact, that you have said something lasting. If only you said, I love you,
Yeah.
that will carry them perhaps through that day, through a tough time or a tough game that they may experience later in the week. So that is important. I think also for us to share and to encourage our young people to explore counseling, or what mental health and mental wellness, what that looks like, what that right fit is. Is it a therapist, is it a counselor, is it an advisor, is it a life coach? Like, what is it meditation, is it all, or some combination of that they can do? It's so important for us to encourage that. I say all the time, I say it to my son, I say it to the players, that therapy is the greatest gift you can give yourself. And I
Yeah.
share with them, I have given myself that gift. Um, and if anybody wants to talk with me more about it, I'll stay after with a team meeting and have the conversation and identify resources. So I think that is so important for us to say to our young people. Let them know, take the mystique off, and any negative connotations around it. Like, take all of that away and really say it in terms of, it's the greatest gift you can give yourself.
I uh,
However you want to engage.
I a million percent agree. And therapy to me is like healing of the soul. It's such a good thing, because
Yep.
like you're saying, you have to get rid of that negativity.
Yep.
You have to just get it out of your system. I mean, everybody goes through it. We all go through it, right? And just the stress that are put on our athletes every single day, whether it be social media, whether it be the coaches, whether it be the players, whether it just be themselves sometimes, where they feel, oh my gosh, I'm not doing the best I can, or whatever they go through in their brains.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
mental stability is so important, and sometimes our kids feel embarrassed to reach out for help, or sometimes they feel like, you know what, people are going to laugh at me, they don't understand, not realizing that it's human, it's okay.
Yep. Yep.
So thank you for mentioning that.
It's the greatest gift. And the other thing I'd say is, let's go back to encouraging good, healthy
Yeah.
food, eating habits and
Yeah.
food choices, because that all plays into it from head to toe, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So we've got to do that. Self-care are words that I use often, and just encourage other people to use and embrace and to share. Self-care,
Yes.
therapy, eating well.
Yeah. You're absolutely. My son and I just had this conversation just past couple of weeks. I went to Toronto to help him after he broke his nose. And at this point, I'm like, okay, he still needs to eat well. He still needs to maintain his body. He still needs to do all these wonderful things that he was doing prior. But he ended up changing chefs. What a difference What a difference because he's a nutritionist. So he understands the athletes. And my
Yep.
son said to me one morning, he's like, it's like having a restaurant in my kitchen. He says, "This is amazing." And he was so blessed because he was like, "You know what? This is what I needed for my body." Yes, he was eating well before, but there was something about the food that was being delivered now that just made a world of difference for
Yep.
him. So
Yep.
you're absolutely right when you're saying I mean, their bodies are their temples and they have to take care of their bodies, and what they put in it makes a huge difference. So you just reminded me of what I was saying the past couple of weeks. We had the experience of choosing someone else that was able to cook, and I laughed because now I am back home, and I text him this morning, I'm like, "I have to cook for myself, this is wrong." I'm like, "Just send me some of your good food," but
Yeah.
so, moving forward, you 'cause I could talk about food all day. You are an executive director with the WNBPA. You get to play a big role in the lives of the many wonderful women who play in the WNBA. In your opinion, are there any similarities that you see between the players of both the NBA and WNBA?
Oh, sure. Sure. They love, I mean, let's start with the obvious. They love basketball. They are committed to training and, getting their bodies fit and prepared. They are looking to be mentally prepared. I mean, they're at the top of the game. They're different leagues for sure. But at the end of the day, basketball is basketball, right? And
Mhm.
to be a member of the 144, I say all the time, like no shade against the guys or our brothers in baseball or in football, but to get a job, to be one of 144, that's big time. um but it pressure is pressure wherever you are, and I think they probably grapple with it in the same ways. The women at the W have been talking more and have a greater emphasis, particularly last year into this year, on mental health and wellness. It's one of their initiatives that they're working on, and so I see that they are a lot more open
Yeah.
to those conversations. They are a lot more open to somebody sharing resources with them than perhaps the guys are. I think the guys are still on their journey and working there. Just speaking kind of generally, knowing
Yep.
that there are lots of guys who have embraced mental health and are ambassadors in that role. But I do see the women just generally, more accepting and more willing to have those kinds of conversations. um, it's similar ways in which we could promote our game and market the game, but I also see that there are some unique differences and opportunities because we are, the women of the W.
Yeah.
And I think that there are, business opportunities that kind of take us um in a different direction than the guys. I mean, I think, we can go down that road where we're all looking to, have our game, marketed and licensed, with trading cards and bobbleheads and all of that. But then there's this opportunity where I think we can go, and take a different turn, take a different journey, because as women, there's opportunities for us to explore that are just unique to who we are,
Yeah.
and what we bring to the table. So I do have a unique opportunity to see the game, and the business of the game, the business behind the game from lots of vantage points. As wife of a retired player, former NBA champion, and my husband, and the mom of a current NBA player, and then I get to lead serve, um, heavy emphasis on serve, the women of the W, and see what they're all about. And that third hat that I get to wear is, like the other two, it's quite a privilege. Quite a privilege.
And your most awesome role of all of them is mom. So
Well, thank you.
yes. Let's talk about the Jackson 3, the amazing family, like I mentioned earlier, that consists of an NBA player, a coach, and an executive director. Between the 3 leagues, you are involved in basketball all year long. So when do you ever find time to spend as a family, and how do you manage that healthy balance? I mean, is there such thing as an off season for you?
There's no such thing as an off season. Um, I think we're the only family in basketball that was in all 3 bubbles
Yep.
during that 2020 season, right? I'm fortunate that, my guys love basketball, and they not they not only wanna go to W games, they wanna be courtside W games, sometimes I'm a little embarrassed to go with my husband because he, like, knows all the players. I know all the players, of course,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But he knows all the players. He remembers where they went to college. And, like, it's just crazy. So, um, Christmas was fun. Like, we were on the road with Jay Jr., so it's still basketball. It's still this season, but there's
Right.
a little bit of downtime. My mother was with us, and we like Netflix like everybody else, and we like bananagrams, and we like the card game presidents, and we do our fair share of competing, with family games and things like that. So that's what it looks like. Years ago, when my dad was still living, and even a few years after my dad had passed, we would vacation with my mom and dad, and then my mom in St. Martin. So
Mm,
that's a place that she likes to get away to. So there's kind of a sweet spot in the year where none of us is doing anything like, or has really, any strong basketball commitments that we kind of get away, but it's not long. I will admit it's not long at all. And we're back in the gym.
well, I guess you could just bless every second that you have away from basketball. It's so funny because I was thinking to myself, I can't imagine them talking about anything but basketball. It's just, you know what I mean?
That's
It
all we
just
that's all we talk about. And you
yeah.
know what? When we were going through negotiations, when I was going through negotiations for our new CBA, I'm so thankful that my husband could listen to all of that and
Yeah.
help me process it, and
Yeah.
help me think about it differently. That he was so, like, he couldn't wait. Like, I'd get off a call, he'd say, "Okay, what's happening now? Like, tell me now. What we doing?" Um, I don't know what we would do if we if we didn't have basketball. So again, it's a blessing that they love it so much, and we just recognize that we build family time around wherever we are, and we make it work.
I love it. I love it. Congratulations to your family's success and everything that you guys do. And before concluding and getting into the fun facts, tell us quickly what is going on in your world and what should we expect from the WNBA in 2022?
Well, you should expect to see a group of players that are laser focused on a social justice initiative that is all about voting and voting rights. They understand the
Yes.
importance of this year in midterm elections. I say all the time that it was they who gave the country a civics lesson, in a true lesson in democracy, and what voting and election and what registering and what completing the census was all about, in that last election year. We first started our voting rights initiative in a midterm election, several years ago with Rock the
Mhm.
Vote. So we're reigniting that partnership with Rock the Vote, and I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm also excited for the relationship that we have with Pepsi Stronger, that has us talking and giving voice
Yes.
to mental health and wellness, and women's health, particularly. So we'll be kicking off some really, really meaningful community initiatives, because that's what the women of the W are all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree 1,000,000%. I love the W. I really love it. And I love the initiatives that the women do. So, and you're a big part of that. So, to me, it's congratulations to you because you're bringing out things that are so important. A lot of things that people don't realize, a lot of people that a lot of things that people don't understand. And I find the women's platform is just amazing. It's just, to me, it's changing a lot that what's going on in the world. So thank you for that. And when I look at Rock the Vote, I had to laugh when I was looking at Jaren Jr.'s jacket, the inside of his jacket.
Right.
Yes, on draft night. So to me, I was like, oh, that's so amazing that he too was so young. But just the fact that he saw the importance of that initiative enough that he was like, I'm going to wear this too. So, and that comes from, that's come from being grounded from awesome parents. So to me, it's like congratulations once again, because that's fantastic to me. I was like, wow, look at this, look at this young man. And look at what he wants to stand for. And he understands everything that's going around him. So
Thank you, Wendy.
my last question before we get to the fun facts. What is it like being the mother of Jaren Jackson Jr.?
I don't think it's any different from anything else any other mother has to deal with, like you still gotta make sure he's up on time and remind him to set an alarm and I don't know, make sure he's eating well and ask him every now and then, is there a girlfriend? Is there somebody I'm gonna meet? I'm not doing anything differently than any other mom.
I love that. I love that. All right. So let's get into the fun facts.
Okay.
What is that go to meal that you make that Jaren must have?
Oh, that's easy. That's soft tacos. So that's ground turkey with pico de gallo, guacamole spread on the tortilla, and a little bit of shredded cheese. And yeah, that's his go to. He will eat that every single day of the week. It's crazy.
Very interesting. And thank you for the recipe. So usually I just get fried chicken. That's it. You went in. Thank you. So I'm sitting here. I can write this down. Thank God this is recorded. Other than a basketball, what is something as a child he just did not want to be without?
That he didn't want to be without. Um, that's a good one. What did he not want to be without? Uh, my mother's mac and cheese? No, no, no,
Yeah.
that's not good. That's not good. Um, the opportunity to play with little ones. He's an only child.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to have somebody come over and hang out at his house. So we tried wherever we were living, but particularly in Maryland, to be, what we all know to be the Kool-Aid house and to
Yeah.
have the house where everybody just wanted to come and congregate. So that's Jay Jr. He wants to have his friends around him.
I love your answer. Whenever I ask that question, I get a million beautiful answers, but it's usually an item. I love the fact that you just gave something completely different because it's absolutely true. There's more than just saying, oh, he loved his teddy bear or he loved his favorite pen or his dinky car. You went over above and you're like, no, hold on, there's something completely different. It's people, it's humans. It's, you know what I mean? Yeah.
He is about the people. He
Yeah.
is he is about his friends. That's
That's
why I
awesome.
had to bring the middle schoolers. Those were his best buddies. They're still like his best buddies to
Ah,
today.
beautiful.
I had to bring them to draft. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What else? What else you got for me?
Do you have a nickname for him? And if so, what was it?
Oh, there were many. So Doodlebug,
Oh,
yeah, String Bean, Sweet Pea, and my mother called him Precious Prince. Still does. The Precious Prince.
oh, oh, that's so cute. I
He's
love
he's
that.
so not gonna like that I gave all these.
He's like, Ma, really? So now I'm going to ask you a couple advice questions. What advice would you give to another courtside mom about how to handle a coaching decision that she does not like?
Wow. Um, well, yeah. So we've experienced a lot of these.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I'm gonna lean with the way my husband has always handled it. And it's to talk with Jaren Jr. about what that coach's decision was, what information, what conversation did Jay Jr. have with the coach around it, if
Mhm.
there was none, encourage him to have it.
Mhm.
And then based on what, where you go from there, uh, what I loved was how Jaren, my husband, would tell Junior to navigate that. Okay, so if that's what coach said he wants, well, then this is what you're going to do. Let me show you how to do that. Um, so I guess my answer to her is to encourage her son or young woman, if we're talking about the W, but to encourage the player to have a conversation with the coach, to understand, because
Mhm.
you
Sure.
you bring a level of respect to yourself and to that coach, right? When you look to have that business conversation, because that's where we are now. We're in the
Yeah.
professional world, so this is business. It's not any different from any other working situation, right? Your
Yeah.
employer, your supervisor makes a decision that affects how you work, whether or not you got a promotion or what have you. So go have a conversation. Don't wait until evaluation time. Don't wait until the end of the season.
Right.
Go and have a conversation that's respectful and said, let me understand the way you're thinking about this. If I have the opportunity to provide you some feedback, let me do that too. But at least look to be heard and look to be engaged, because it's the player that shows that she or he cares enough that that's the player that sticks in that coach's mind,
For
right?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So, what advice now would you give to a player about how to deal with a tough teammate?
How to deal with a tough teammate. Well, we're all about the Kool-Aid house, so I'd say invite them over. Invite them over. And look to see if you could rub off and, perhaps make that whatever makes the teammate tough or the situation tough between you and the teammate. Let's see if it's something that you can work through. But
Yeah.
your colleagues, your working professionals, so invite them over.
Yep.
Have some
Ab-
have some have some time together. Look to do some bonding, some additional conversation, just hanging out, get to know you time.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I think that's what it's all about.
that's important. So if my son ever comes to me and says that, man, this player is just driving me nuts. So I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm just gonna email Terry and get the address to the Kool-Aid house. So I'm gonna tell my son. And my last question is, if you could only give one piece of amazing advice to another courtside mom, what would that advice be?
um, to be patient, to be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your young player. Encourage them to see this as a journey and to enjoy the journey, um, for you and for them.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
we're in a rush. I think we're in a world in which we're in a rush for everything to happen, to have hits and followers and all of this, and we lose sight of the journey and the learning process that comes from it and the enjoyment that should come from that.
yeah. Oh my
So
gosh, you are.
be patient. Be
Yeah.
patient and recognize that.
Thank you for saying that. That is so true. Because, like you said, we just want everything to happen now.
Right.
And
And
that's
we want
how,
to, and as moms, we want to be right and we want to be perfect and we want everything to just line up and be in ordered and we don't want them to be hurt or get hurt. And you know, take 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 some time and be patient. And you're going to make mistakes and they're going to make
yeah.
mistakes. And it's how you respond in the end along this way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I always say, don't lose sight of your journey. Don't lose sight of where you are, because one day you're just going to sit there and everything's just going to pass by you and you're not even going to realize it. And then it's all going to come to an end and you're going to be like, well, what happened?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? You realize the past 15 years, all these wonderful things were there.
Yeah.
But because we were too busy focused, you know what I mean, on, okay, well, what's going to happen, what we're going to do, and all these things that we needed to happen right away, probably already did happen and we just lost complete sight of it. So thank you for saying that because you are absolutely correct. So just focus, everybody who's ever listening, please focus, 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 and be patient because at the end of the day, the process is only going to go as fast as it should, irregardless of what we do or what we think. If it's not meant to happen today, doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It can happen tomorrow, but just allow tomorrow to come when tomorrow was supposed to come.
Yep.
You are fantastic, Terry. It's like, oh, like I said earlier, your family is very inspiring to me. And just reading and watching videos and doing research and all these wonderful things that I did to learn about the Jackson family to me was just I don't even know what word to put to describe um my joy of preparing to meet you finally. So thank you so much for sharing on Courtside Moms. It's my platform that is all about us. It's all about what we did to raise our professional athletes, to raise our children, and to let people see the human side of our kids that are not only athletes, they're people and they're amazing people. And you just opened up a different view that some people may have not known about Jaren Jr. and yourself and your husband. So thank you very much for coming on Courtside Moms and sharing all that with us.
Wendy, thank you for sharing and making space for me and being so patient with me to connect with you. I appreciate it. And maybe one day, in addition to the podcast that you do, maybe one day you'll convene us all in a conference,
Yes.
in person, please. But maybe
Amen.
I see you as the connector who can do
Oh,
that. So thank
thank
you.
you.